has come in for you and your daughter. Please call back 055-924-2717 and 055-691-0154. Please call back if you are that lady, or if you know her, please tell her to call back. Unfortunately, we couldn't get her details before she dropped the line. But there's help that has come in. 055-924-2717. Please call back. Helen, her reality, her story.
That's right. Yeah. And the reality of many other people who are trying to get by. I've been lucky in the last couple of days that I have not experienced doom. So, and sometimes when you're not experiencing it yourself, it's very difficult to relate with others. But I see so many other people on social media who still don't have lights. Even as we speak right now, people are going through disco lights, on, off, on, off. Doomsday is still very much in the system. We've been given so many assurances for government's own sake. Right. I hope that these assurances are real and we can see the end of this doom. So if not, if we go into June, July, August, and these things still persist, it's not going to be good.
You know, these days the children are not scared of the police again. When you tell them, or in the past when you tell them that
police will catch you,
I'm going to report you to the police, and they stop. These days all you need to tell them about, tell ECG to put the light off. And say, oh, mommy, guy.
Because they know that the tablets, everything will go off.
Everything is gone off, and everything is gone off, and it's sad, very sad indeed. But today is World Press Freedom Day. Listen to the Republic of Ghana's president Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo on World Press Freedom Day some 5 years ago. Listen to him.
I'm very grateful to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, for the invitation to participate in this year's World Press Freedom Day, which is being held in our capital city of Accra for the first time on the theme, Keeping Power in Check, Media, Justice, and the Rule of Law. We are proud to host this year's event. And those of you who come from beyond our shores are welcome amongst the people who pride themselves on their sense of hospitality. I know you've already been here for a day or two, and I hope you're enjoying your stay amongst us. Akwaba, as you know by now, is our word of welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, on 7th January this year, we celebrated the silver jubilee of our nation's Fourth Republic. It has proved to be the most enduring and most successful of the four republics of our history. Its constitution has enabled us to establish our state on sound democratic principles, grounded on the separation of powers. Though the Constitution of the Fourth Republic guarantees freedom of expression, including freedom of the press and other media, as a fundamental human right, and makes elaborate provisions to protect the freedom and independence of the media, the existing laws, which were continued in force by the same Constitution, contained colonial laws in our statute books that were manifestly anti-libertarian and repressive of free speech. That is why, as Attorney General, under the government of the great Ghanaian statesman, His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor, the second president of the Fourth Republic, I led the process in Parliament for the repeal of the criminal libel law. The repeal, when it occurred on 27 July 2001, was a very happy day for me, representing one of the high points of my public career. The repeal has had a very positive impact on the development of the Ghanaian media, freeing it from unnecessary self-censorship and promoting a robust and critical media culture. In the process, it has contributed to the growth of a vibrant media that has won Ghana the reputation of having one of the most media-friendly and liberal climates on the continent. It has also contributed significantly to the deepening of democracy in our country, enhancing public accountability as a strategic goal of public policy. The parlous justification preferred for the retention of the criminal libel law has been that its repeal has made Ghanaian media practitioners reckless and unprofessional in their work, thereby at times damaging the good image and name of public figures and endangering society as a whole. Even as one of the public figures most constantly vilified in sections of the Ghanaian media, and who ironically was a principal actor in the repeal of the law, I continue to insist that its repeal was necessary in the public interest in our emerging democracy. I will say again that I must prefer the noisy, boisterous, sometimes scurrilous media of today to the monotonous, praise-singing, sycophantic one of yesteryear.
President Akufo-Addo 2018 World Press Freedom Day under the banner of the GJA and UNESCO. Joining us on the phone line now is Isaac Wilberforce-Mensah, is a lawyer. He's also the spokesperson at the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice. Good morning, Counsel. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, my very own Johnny. And of course, you forgot to add that. And he has also been in the media for some 15 years prior to that.
Absolutely.
And happy World Press Freedom Day to yourselves and the entire staff of Media General.
Great. Thank you so much, and to you as well, because what you're doing now is still media. Is the press really free in Ghana?
Per our laws, yes, they are. Per our laws, because initially we had this. Initially, if you look at Act 29, there was a very broad law which has to do with publication of false news. So once any media house publishes any such news which is deemed to be false or which in fact is false, you are liable to punishment under our law. So you're liable to prosecution subject to your defense. So that law has been taken away and has been left to the civil court. So if a media house publishes something bad, something wrong, defamatory or whatever about a person, you cannot prosecute the person. However, you can have your remedy in the civil courts.
I see. Now, one of the biggest issues each time we've had Press Freedom Day, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, is the murder of Ahmed Suale, who used to work with investigative journalist Anas Aremeya Anas. He was under witness protection, was murdered. We have still not brought finality to the matter, and his family is grieving. They're asking for things to be sped up. What does the Ministry of Justice have to say about that particular matter?
Well, my last briefing on that particular case was that the investigations are still ongoing. We received a docket, but remember that the Office of the Attorney General prosecutes and does not persecute. So the fact that some names were mentioned in the particular docket does not mean we should go ahead to prosecute if the evidence does not support the charge. So the initial docket that we had does not support prosecution of the suspects that were named therein, and that investigations are still ongoing. And I know for certain that is an active investigation. Even though it has taken quite some time, it's not because of the fact that investigations have stopped totally, no. From time to time, the current Attorney General personally writes to the police, writes to the IGP to assure them that we are ready to prosecute, continue your investigations, find who we need to find for this particular crime or to answer this particular crime. But it's not just akin to Ghana. It's not just something that's happening in Ghana right now. It happens there. I mean, in the United States, for instance, they have even a cold files section where people investigate cold cases, And I think in Ghana, we have the same thing in our police. So this case has not even been declared cold, but it's still an investigation that's ongoing. And once we are able to identify whoever committed the offense, the person would be prosecuted by the Office of the Attorney General accordingly.
Sections of the media and, in fact, civil society organizations have been particularly worried that, look, Ahmed Suale's photograph was put on national television by a very well-known member of parliament. And the going conversation is that that member of parliament has not been invited by the police to support or to assist in investigations. And while the police is going to be prosecuting on behalf of the ministry of which you speak for, they find it strange that we say we are trying to bring finality to the matter, and yet somebody as influential and important as this member of parliament has not been invited yet to tell the police at least what he knows or doesn't know.
Well, Johnny, whenever anyone tells you that, I just ask the person one question: have you seen the docket? It's a bit unfortunate when or for some persons to suggest that the honourable member of parliament has not. I personally have not seen the docket, so I cannot speak to whether or not he has been invited. But as a matter of police investigations, we know that it's actually, it goes without saying that it's most likely the case that he has been invited. But since
Counsel, have you seen the docket yourself?
That's what I'm saying. The portions of the docket that I have seen,
right,
I wasn't looking for that. But I don't think anyone who has made that statement out in the general public has seen the docket to make that statement emphatically. So I think we can veer away from.
But Counsel, don't you also think that if this matter has been re-echoed over and over again, that the member of parliament who put up Ahmed Suale's photo on TV and actually invited the public to beat him up if they found him and come and collect money for doing that, at this point, if the allegation is that he has not been invited by the police to assist in the investigation, and the Attorney General should take keen interest in it if really we want to bring finality and closure to the matter?
The Attorney General takes keen interest in every single criminal case, high or low, quote and unquote. So yes, the Attorney General has interest in this case as well.
And the interest I'm asking of is that somebody has been mentioned, somebody put Ahmed Suale, who is now dead, murdered under witness protection. He is gone. The matter has not ended. The member of parliament who did that, instigated that violence against him, per his own words on national TV, is still there. And the argument is that he has not been invited by the police to assist in investigation. You saying you have seen the docket, but you were not focusing
that he has not been invited by the police.
So that is why I'm asking. So that is why I'm asking that. Would it not serve all of our interests if the Attorney General comes to say that I've seen the docket, the police is prosecuting on our behalf, and in the docket I have seen that the said MP has been invited. Case closed.
The Attorney General would, in matters like this, look at the facts contained in the docket and advise or prosecute accordingly. As it stands now, there's no actionable case to go on in respect of the murder of Ahmed Suale.
I see. Well, Suleiman Abraham of Media Foundation for West Africa is also joining us on the other phone line. Sule, good morning.
Good morning.
And happy World Press Freedom Day to all of us.
Many happy returns, my brother.
Is the press really free in Ghana?
Well, I wouldn't say yes to that, but it's not just in Ghana. I don't know anywhere in the world today that one can confidently say that the media are absolutely free, except that, of course, in our case here in Ghana, conditions are deteriorating over time, and that is why I believe we must all be concerned, because if what is happening continues, things would go down further, and it's not good for our democracy, it's not good for our national reputation, it's not good for the practice of media itself, and ultimately the impact of that would be something that will have ramifications on all of us.
The murder of Ahmed Suale, it still hangs in a balance in terms of bringing respite and justice to the family and those who are near and dear to him, worked with him as well. What does the Media Foundation for West Africa say 5 or so years on since the murder of Ahmed Suale?
Well, I think it's by now, everyone should know that the government is not interested in investigating the matter. And that is why it is as it is. Because, I mean, if the government was serious about this matter, I'm sure that even if we wouldn't have gotten to the conclusion of the matter, we would have seen some semblance of seriousness on the part of the government. We know that Cecilia Dapaah sat on his media outlets and incited violence against him. Subsequently, he was murdered. I'm not saying that his action directly resulted in the murder, but subsequently the same Cecilia Dapaah publicly said that the person who shot Ahmed Suale is known and mentioned the name, and said that that was communicated to him by the police, the same police that is supposed to be investigating the matter. According to Cecilia Dapaah, had told him that there is this person in Kumasi who committed a crime, and nothing happens. If Kennedy was lying about it, why hasn't the police acted against him? If what he was saying is the truth, why hasn't the police taken a decision? The president on a number of occasions say, well, the government is committed to, ensuring that the perpetrators of Ahmed Suale's murder are brought to book. And it turns out to be that it is his usual rhetoric, basically saying sweet things without action. The Attorney General last year at the UN Human Rights Day made a similar promise. We're going to investigate and make sure that the perpetrators are brought to justice. This year, he's saying, well, the police have not brought a docket. I think, it's all clear that the government is not interested in pursuing that matter. And again, it's something that further undermines our press freedom credentials as a nation.
Well, Wilberforce, let me bring you into this conversation. And you just heard the tape before I started speaking with you. The president 5 years ago saying that, well, he would prefer noisy and sometimes querulous media, even though press freedom may or has a tendency of making some journalists or media people reckless. What is the position of the law in terms of reckless media practitioners and how they can be guided to get back on the right path?
There are the body under which all media houses fall under, aside the GJ, Media Commission. Yes, you can make reports to Media Commission so that the media houses can be sanctioned, amongst others. You can make reports to the GJ so that the journalists can also be sanctioned. But however, as far as criminality is concerned, so the fact is that initially it was criminal to do certain things. Initially, for a journalist to say anything which was wrong, which was inaccurate, that by itself was a criminal offense. Publication of false news was a criminal offense, whether in writing, whether audio, video. Once you publish such false news, it was a criminal offense. So that is exactly not the case. And I just want to respond something briefly that my brother Suleiman said. And it's that it is not the case that the Attorney General or the government, I don't speak for government, I speak for the Office of the Attorney General, but from the Office of the Attorney General's point, which, of course, in this instance is government, it's not the case that the Attorney General is not interested in finding the murders of Ahmed Suale. This is an investigation which is being handled by the police. The police initially brought a docket, and the docket in which certain names were mentioned. So if Honorable Kennedy Dapaah must have mentioned the name, and that name is contained in that docket, and the Attorney General looks at this docket and says that the evidence does not support the charge of murder in respect of these people, police go back and continue to do further investigations. The Office of the Attorney General, once a docket comes, we don't go straight ahead to prosecute. No, we look at the facts of the case, we look at the evidence available, we look at the law, and we say that these facts and the evidence will not support this charge.
You have just 1 minute remaining.
And the docket was not fit for prosecution. So the investigations are still ongoing. And that's why the Honorable Attorney General earlier made the analogy or the example with the Tupac murder. That has been several decades. It's only this year or late last year that the murder or the murderer was found. So things like this happen, not just in Ghana. It's unfortunate that this has taken the media space to the extent to which it has. But there are several cases in Ghana and outside Ghana that have not yet been solved. And it doesn't mean that they are not actively pursuing those cases. And like I said earlier also, the Attorney General himself periodically, sometimes twice a year, periodically writes to the police to inquire as to the status of this particular investigation. So yes, the government is interested in.
You have no call.
Well, so Suale, now I come to you and then ask this question. So Wilberforce insists that the government is interested. What else do you want to see to show that the government is interested in this matter, Suale?
Well, I think that I've shared some of the antecedents that should convince everyone that the government is not interested. I don't think that if it was an MP or a DCE or whatever that happened, that was killed, we would have seen what we are witnessing. In fact, at some point, the president even said that we shouldn't even look at it as a press freedom issue, because when J.B. Dankwa was murdered, nobody said that it was an attack on the legislature. So we shouldn't look at the Ahmed Suale thing as an incident affecting press freedom. As I told you, Honorable Kennedy Japan says, I know the person who committed the act, and the person is in Kumasi. And this information was given to me by the police that is supposed to be investigating the matter. So with all these developments, and of course, Kennedy himself, did what he did. And in a serious country, he would have been seriously questioned. And we didn't see that. Then subsequently, out of the fact that he is being accused, and he doesn't like being accused, because the police told me that this person did it and the person is in Kumasi, and nothing happened, And so I'm not saying that, well, when acts like this happen, within 2 years, 3 years, they must necessarily be resolved. Yes, there are cases that perpetrators will be pursued over 10 years, and eventually they get arrested and prosecuted. But you would see evidence of seriousness. You will see evidence of commitment to getting the case resolved, which is something that we are not seeing, apart from just promises, which, of course, we are now used to. The president, on a number of occasions, has said, we will do this. We will pursue the perpetrators. We will pursue the perpetrators. The Attorney General says the same thing. Of course, the Attorney General is an investigator. He basically deals with the legal matters when matters are brought to his attention. But what does the president know when he says, look, we'll bring these people, or we'll bring the perpetrators to book? And yet, at the end of that, nothing happens. So I am not convinced, and I believe that by now a lot of people are not convinced that the government is serious about pursuing that particular case.
Now, Suale, there's also the conversation that usually comes from civil society organizations, the political class, insisting that journalists must be professional at all times, and that some of them are very reckless. In terms of on-the-job training and refresher courses, do you get a sense that media houses and, in fact, the GJ are doing enough to make sure that their journalists are always at par with the going standards and ethics of the practice?
Well, first of all, let me say that the GJ, yes, has a role to play, but I don't think that it is the responsibility of the GJA to say that FM journalists are trained to be able to do their work professionally. The GJA can complement and can support. The Media Foundation can complement and support. But the ultimate responsibility of ensuring that journalists in the media are doing their work professionally lies within the media organization itself. And of course, we cannot run away from the fact that there is so much unprofessional conduct in our media today. In fact, I mean, I'm on your network, so I don't want to go blunt, but we do know some of the things that are happening, even within your media group, you know, and certainly these are things that cannot be justified. These are things that cannot be called journalism. Yes, journalists are expected to be critical, to hold government accountable, to expose government, to hold duty bearers accountable, and all of that. But that must be done within the remit of acceptable journalistic practice. Sometimes, in the name of, you know, holding government, in the name of being critical, in the name of being bold, and all of that, we then go outside the boundaries of what we are supposed to do. And I've said that one of the biggest threats, the biggest, to press freedom is unprofessional media conduct, because then it becomes difficult to justify the defense that you put up for people. If the public have lost confidence, the public feel that we are not gaining the value that we should have. The other thing, I think, which is really making Ghana's situation quite troubling, is the fact that the media houses that we have, and here I'm talking predominantly about broadcast media, are partisan. These are, I mean, entities that are basically established not for the business of journalism, but for political propaganda. And we can name names. Sometimes, I mean, of course, I'm on your network, so I don't want to name other people as if I'm targeting them. But, I mean, you have radio stations that are basically just existing to do the political propaganda for political parties or their owners. And how do you say that that's journalism? So that's the problem. And it's also because over the years, the NCA, that is supposed to be the regulator over spectrum allocation, basically passes frequencies out to partisan folks as if, you know, distributing candies. When MPP is there, they do it. When NDC is there, they do it. And so ultimately, we live in a country of 32 million people, and we have over 700 or so radio stations, more than 100 television stations, talk about online platforms, talk about newspapers, and so on. I mean, how can the size of our economy support this? And so it's all about political financing. We set up radio stations, get people who are not trained to be there. And the sad thing is, once you are on radio, you are called a journalist. You know, and so whether you are an SS graduate or whatever, it's all about you are eloquent.
Right.
With Mr. Chipa, program. As soon as the person appears on radio, it's a journalist speaking, and so we must listen. So I mean, it's a complex situation, but we still have to continue to do what we have to do to right all the wrongs that are happening.
I see. Wilberforce, welcome back. The legal regime, or if you like, the space, and here I want to draw in the National Media Commission. We've seen the NMC in cases past trying to crack the whip, but they have also been heavily criticized that sometimes they go beyond what they are mandated to do. From where you sit as spokesperson for the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, what do you say?
About the National Media Commission?
Right, and sometimes the allegations that are made against them that they go beyond what the law permits them so to do.
Yes, that's why the law has remedies for actions that are taking excess jurisdiction. So, for instance, even the courts do not have absolute jurisdiction in all matters. So that's why sometimes the district courts, the circuit courts, people go and say that, look, you ruled in this way, but you didn't have jurisdiction to even entertain the matter, or you can't go. The district court, for instance, cannot, let's say, sentence a person beyond a certain number of years. So similarly to the National Media Commission, which is a constitutional body. It's not just a body set up by It's a body whose powers are enshrined in the Constitution or guaranteed by the Constitution, and of course they have their act and they have their laws that govern them. So whichever action they take that are in excess or that is in excess of jurisdiction, anyone can those actions are null and void. Let's just put it that way.
I see.
Or they're avoidable.
So your closing thoughts as we wrap up. Today's World Press Freedom Day. I'm sure the speeches will come in, but in terms of the relevance of those speeches to the practice, if you looked at the Press Freedom Index, I'm just seeing the 2024 index. We've moved from 62 to 50 globally after we dipped, for many times. But we're at number 50 now. Is there anything to jubilate considering the speeches that have been made in the past and what will be made today?
Well, I mean, of course, speeches will continue to be made. It would inspire people to sometimes act in one way or the other. But as a nation, I think we have a lot to do. We cannot continue to have an environment where the broadcast sector is so liberalized without any regulation. I think we've been talking about the broadcasting bill or the broadcasting law for almost 2 decades now. We cannot continue to have an environment that is unregulated. I don't think that it happens anywhere. Even in the most liberalized countries of the world, talk about the Scandinavian countries, the broadcast sector is regulated, and I think that it's important that we do that. Apart from that, I think those of us in the ecosystem, the media practitioners, media defense organizations, we also do have a lot to do. I think people who are practicing as journalists must do journalism. Those who want to go out there and do politics must quit and go and do politics. And those who want to do journalism must stay on and do professional journalism. And I think that is very important. The last point is that I think the government must have an attitude of tolerance, because, I mean, we all were told that when it comes to human rights and all of that, President Akufo-Addo, is a notable figure in that. But I think in practice, we are seeing less of that. And I think the earlier the government started to be tolerant of dissenting opinions, the better it will be for all of us. Because it's not just about press freedom, it's also about freedom of expression. But increasingly, we notice a government that is quite intolerant about dissenting views. And that is part of the reasons why we find ourselves where we are in terms of the global ranking on press freedom. And so it's about regulation, it's about professionalism, it's about tolerance, and together I'm sure we will build the democracy that we want and the democracy we need. So happy World Press Freedom Day to all colleagues, and wishing all of us the very best.
Suleiman Abrahama, Media Foundation for West Africa, we're grateful for your time this morning. And that was Suleiman Abrahama of the Media Foundation for West Africa. I still have Lawyer Wilberforce Mensah with me. He's spokesperson for the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice. Now, let's talk about Madam Cecilia Dapaah. We've seen a back and forth, IOCO, Office of the Special Prosecutor, and the Office of the Attorney General as well. What is the inside story? Tell us, Counsel.
Oh, I think the inside story is now outside. Because the letter to IOCO or from the Attorney General's office sort of summarizes everything. So we know from the past that the Office of the Special Prosecutor was investigating this matter and investigated the matter seriously, and there was no objection to that investigation from the Office of the Attorney General or even government. There was no objection. And after investigations which lasted for quite some time. So before I even go on, I just want to explain the law, set the tone straight on what money laundering is. So money laundering, in a nutshell, is simply concealing gains of crime. So it's not just concealing money. It's not just I have money in my wardrobe, I have money in a safe, I have money hidden somewhere, so it's a crime. No, that's not money laundering. Money laundering is that when you are concealing the gains of crime. So what's most important is not the concealment, but that there has to be a crime. So there has to be a crime first before that concealment becomes an issue, or that transfer or attempting to hide the money becomes an issue. So the question is, what was the crime, or what crime has been found in respect of the former minister? And from the communications between the communication that we had on our docket between the Office of the Special Prosecutor and the YOCO, you realize that the no crime has been found. And this is after investigations by the Office of the Special Prosecutor went on for some 7 months. And aside that, the FBI came and joined in. They also investigated the matter for an extra 4 months into the former minister. And absolutely no criminal offense has yet, or at least our office is aware of, because no such thing has been found. Per the evidence available to us, or per the letters and the documents available to us from the Office of the Special Prosecutor and from YOCO, absolutely nothing has been found. So since money laundering is predicated on a substantive offense, and there is no substantive offense, then we can't talk about money laundering at all. We can't say simply because we found X amount of money in a person's house, the person is guilty of money laundering. No, that's not how the law works. So that's what the letter from the Office of the Attorney General to YOCO sought to elaborate, or sought to bring out, that we can't talk about money laundering if there is no substantive offense to begin with.
Now, the public sentiments since this matter came to light, I mean, first, the president writes to say, and I want to quote the president, says, well, I have received your letter dated Saturday, 22nd of July 2023, resigning from office as Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources and as a member of the government. It is with considerable regret that I accept your resignation, and I applaud your loyalty to the image and standing of the government. The work you undertook during your period in government was excellent and productive, and I thank you for your wholehearted contribution and devotion to the progress of the government and the nation. I am confident, like you, that at the end of the day, your integrity while in office will be fully established. I wish you the very best in your endeavors. Signed by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo on the 22nd of July 2023 from the Jubilee House on his official letterhead. Is copied, sent to Cecilia Dapaah, of course, copied to the Vice President, the Chief of Staff, Secretary to the President, and Secretary to the Vice President. Now, the public have been talking since this letter came from your stables to the other parties and stakeholders, and the conversation in the public domain is that you are giving meaning to the president, what the president wrote, that Cecilia will come out unscathed and everything will go as everybody says, oh, nothing will happen. Really, is that the case?
Well, Johnny, it's evident from the letter and even from the appointment that the president has some kind of good relations with Madam Cecilia Dapaah. If, Johnny, the relationship you and I have in a professional way and just knowing each other, I've known you for years, for over 10 years,
right.
20 years.
Right.
Yes. If I receive allegations that Johnny has done X, Y, Z, the way I know Johnny, I can say emphatically that I'm confident that you come out unscathed. I mean, I may not be able to say the same for Sixtus and Helen, but then Johnny, the way I know you, I would be able to say confidently that some offenses, I would say that definitely it's impossible. It's impossible, definitely, Johnny. So if the president makes such a statement, and remember, the president is not the police. And even if you can assume that the president is directing the police not to do a thorough investigation into the matter, can you also assume that the president is directing or directed the Office of the Special Prosecutor not to also do a thorough investigation? And by extension, can you also assume that the president of Ghana directed the Federal Bureau of Investigations, USA, also not to do a thorough investigation into Madam Cecilia Dapaah. It certainly cannot be the case. So if all these bodies, if you've had the Ghana Police, you've had the Office of the Special Prosecutor, you've had the FBI do all sorts of checks, and they checked absolutely everything to the best of my knowledge. From the briefing I have, it's a bit evident that the president's statement was just a statement of affection and one that he is confident in the person he knows. So if investigations by independent bodies have established no culpability or no criminality, therefore no offense for money laundering to be predicated upon, then I don't think the president's statements in any way should be considered as one that sort of controlled or sort of whitewashed something.
What does this?
It's just a statement of confidence in a person he knew.
So what does this really mean? Does it mean that Madam Cecilia Dapaah has been left off the hook? No trial, nothing, no prosecution. It just walks free. Is that the case?
But Johnny, we cannot prosecute for a person who has not committed an offense. And right now, if I ask you or I ask anybody what offense Madam Cecilia Dapaah has committed, so far nobody has been. If the Office of the Special Prosecutor himself or the entire office has not been, they've not been able to come out with any criminal offense. If the FBI of the United States of America have also not been, we haven't seen the reports of the trans-border or trans-boundary investigation that took place between OSP and FBI. But it is evident that absolutely no criminal offense has been found at the moment. So money laundering doesn't come in at all. That's why I explained what money laundering is at the beginning. So it's not just finding money. So as it stands now, until such a time that a substantive offense is found, there's nothing wrong as it stands now.
So this could be sending a very wrong signal to people that if God blesses me and I get paid a lot more and I can get $1 million, I might as well keep it at home and not at the bank because somebody else did it and, well, nothing happened. It may set the wrong precedence, wouldn't it?
I don't think so. We don't know whether she intended to take the money to the bank. I mean, that has not been the complaint from the beginning. The complaint from the beginning has been suspicion of corruption or maybe some kind of procurement breaches or some kind of illegality on the part of a public officer, not the propriety of keeping money in the house per se, and also the issue of money laundering. So if the criminal aspects have been removed, as for the moral argument, morality is subjective in general. So we'll leave it to anybody how they choose to keep their money as long as they do not fall foul of the law.
Former President John Mahama says he will reopen the case if he becomes president of the Republic. How does that sound to you?
Well, if he chooses to reopen a case, one, by the letter that we wrote, nobody has written expressly that the case is closed. That's not what the case said. The investigative bodies are the police and all the other security agencies. What the letter said was to Iyoko was that, you can't talk about money laundering if the substantive offense has not been found. The letter laid a foundation that there's been 7 months investigation by OSP and an extra 4 months investigation by OSP plus FBI, and no criminality per the information that was available in the docket that Iyoko sent to us was found. So Iyoko investigating money laundering is a non-starter.
I see. I thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. We're grateful.
Thank you too, Johnny.
That's lawyer Wilberforce Mensah. He is spokesperson for the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice here on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.
promise. They cannot fulfill.
The best in the morning is on 92.7 Sunrise on 3FM.
We'll go back onto the phone line on this Cecilia Dapaah, Ioko, Attorney General, Special Prosecutor, Tango Wango, and speak with Mr. Vitus Azim. He's an anti-graft campaigner and the convener of the Tax Justice Ghana. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for your time. How are you?
Yeah, good morning. I'm doing well.
Great. I'm sure that you have seen the advice of the Attorney General on the Cecilia Dapaah matter. As an anti-graft campaigner, what does that mean to you?
It's just a way of shelving the matter. 3 state institutions doing nothing in almost 12 months about this particular case. It is disappointing, to say the least.
The Attorney General insists that no law was broken and that right from the get-go, the conversation about the money being kept at home was all part of the conversation. So the issues that were being looked at was corruption, money laundering, etc. How does that sound again to you?
What gave rise to the investigations and the seizure of the monies and other assets? Was it not because somebody stole money from Ms. Cecilia Dapaah's house? How can you say that that was not part of the conversation? That was the reason why the conversation even started in the first place. Yes, you may say that there's no law saying you cannot put all that money in your house. But for a public officer, a government appointee who is paid by you and me, to have so huge an amount of money hidden in the house, there's cause for an investigation. When you are caught leaving the U.S. with cash of more than $10,000 in your pocket, it's taken away from you. Only $10,000. And one person can keep $1 million in the house, in addition to other currencies. And you think that is not something that Ghanaians should be worried about, and that all 3 state institutions are unable to investigate the matter. I think that we have a lot to worry about.
The president wrote a letter on the 22nd of July 2023 assuring or expressing his confidence that Madam Cecilia Dapaah was going to come out of this clean as a whistle. Do you think that is playing out per what you have seen and read?
At the time, some of us condemned it and said that it was going to influence the direction of the investigations. And it has come out clearly. All the 3 institutions, the heads are appointed by the president. And if the president has given them a pointer, we do not expect anything different. And that's the unfortunate part.
What example does this set for people who get into public office and even people who have dealings with government but are not government officials? What example does this set?
Very bad example. For those in power or those in government, it gives them the chance to act with impunity, to do things with impunity because they know that the president is behind them. So whatever they do, it doesn't matter what you and I talk about. They will get off the hook. As for people coming in to do business in Ghana, they will say, oh yeah, once you can pay your way through, everything is going to be fine. Just come and you pay your way through, and you are fine. But it has driven away people coming to do business in Ghana before. When somebody comes and a minister just wants approval from a minister to start something, and the minister asks for a certain amount of money up front, and the fellow turns away, it's not only that person turning away, but the other people that person will influence, who also initially planned to come to Ghana and invest. Yet, we carry people in a presidential jet or a chartered jet to go out to sell the country to investors. Are we really serious about selling this country to investors? When internally we drive them away. So it's a very bad example. And it doesn't speak well of us as a so-called democracy.
For those of you within the anti-graft space, this will come as a big shocker, but also does it discourage you from continuing your fight against corruption?
It's not a shocker because we expected it. But it should not discourage us because
92.7.
we are hoping and praying that one day we'll get a more radical leader that will stand up and say, enough is enough. I am not going to allow this to happen. And that's why we are praying for, and that's why we continue to engage in this talk about corruption. I say we don't fight corruption, we are talking about corruption. But we talk with the hope that someday there will be a change in society, change in leadership, and that things will go back to what we expect. Of course, some of us have been discouraged. Others have fallen in line with what is now accepted as a norm. But it's not everybody.
I see.
Yeah.
You say that you are not shocked and that you're looking for a more radical leader. Does it mean that the president is not being radical enough in the fight against corruption and that he is also doing things that have been normalized, even though you find them wrong and offensive within the anti-graft space?
He is not interested in dealing with corruption. That's why some people have described him as clearinghouse. How can you, the president, be the first to tell somebody that has been accused that you are sure she will be exonerated? And she really ends up being exonerated. And your own appointees, those that you have appointed, he is the one that appointed all these three people without going through any transparent process. They owe him allegiance. They feel obliged to him. So they are likely to do what he wants.
Former President John Mahama says if given the opportunity to govern Ghana again, he will reopen this case. We hear politicians promise stuff, but do you believe that it could happen if he so wins the elections?
I do not believe in promises of politicians until they have come into power and they actually go by what they have promised. We've seen since 92 or even before 92, even with the military regimes, they come in promising to fight corruption and all that. After 2-3 years, they do worse. Some of them do worse than the civilian politicians. So until you come in and you do what you say you do, I see it as a half-truth. Because you want our votes. So you say what we want to hear. It's normal with politics, not only in Ghana, but all over the world. You say what the electorate want to hear so that they will be convinced to give you their votes. And they can only prove them otherwise when you come in and you do what you promise that you will do.
Mr. Azima, thank you very much for your time this morning. We're grateful.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too, sir. Mr. Vitus Azim is an anti-corruption or anti-graft campaigner. And let's go back to 6 months ago. Yeah? We're still in the Libi Labalaba movement, but we'll go back to 6 months ago. Listen.
I called Auntie Cecilia Dapaah. I called her yesterday. And she's been quite busy with the